Welcome back to PPCM's Painful Truth. Today's guest, Kristin Ring.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Hi.
Awesome. I apologize for being late.
No, that's okay. I'm so glad that you're with us today, Kristin. Is that your PPCM baby?
It is. This is Piper.
Oh, hi, Piper. Hi. Oh, she's so cute. How old is she?
She is, what's today? She will be 8 months tomorrow.
8 months tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for just, giving me your time today. I know you have your hands full. How old were you when you were just recently diagnosed?
I gave birth on May 19th and I turned 32 on June 1st. So I was just a week or so before my 32nd birthday.
32nd birthday? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Hold on one second. Can you please take him into the bedroom? I have a puppy.
It's okay. I have a Great Dane chewing a bone in
And
the background. You can probably hear him.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, he was just like running around. So I know I asked you. So at what point is this your first and only baby?
She is, yes.
And so
I'm walking upstairs to her room, so there's less distractions.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, she is my first and my only.
So she's your first and your only. She's your PPCM baby. And
yeah.
At what point, what you gave birth during COVID, correct?
Yes.
And when were you actually diagnosed peripartum cardiomyopathy?
So I had severe preeclampsia. And so my doctor was shooting to get to 37 weeks. And we, just before 37 weeks, I would have been at 37 weeks on Thursday. And we started the induction process on Monday morning, first thing. And sorry, I definitely just walked upstairs and I'm slightly out of breath.
I know, I hear you. It's okay.
But we started the induction process first thing on Monday morning. And then she was born 7:45 on Wednesday night. So it was a very long on Wednesday night. So it was
what date?
May 19th.
May 19th, 2021.
2021. Yep. And the next few days were I got sick. She was in the NICU. I was in the hospital. I hemorrhaged really badly after birth and had to do blood transfusions. Ended up back in the hospital in the ER Sunday, like early Sunday morning. And then from there, that's when they did the testing, realized there was something wrong with my heart and transferred me to about an hour and a half away to WVU, which is West Virginia University Medical Center.
Okay. And so the West Virginia Medical Center was the location that diagnosed you as peripartum cardiomyopathy?
Technically, the local hospital, it's called St. Joseph's Hospital, is the one that diagnosed me, but they weren't equipped to treat me. So they transferred me to WVU Medical, which is about an hour and a half away. And so this all happened. I don't know the exact date to answer your question from earlier, but she was born 19th on a Wednesday night. And then that following Sunday is when we started all the testing, and I was at WVU by Monday. So 5 days.
Okay. And so Did you feel like, I know that you had preeclampsia during pregnancy, but did you feel like what you were experiencing during pregnancy after once you gave birth, that your symptoms were getting worse? Or what were the symptoms that you had during your pregnancy compared to after, when they finally diagnosed you?
Yeah. So I got diagnosed with gestational diabetes fairly early on.
Mhm.
And I had some issues with blood pressure,
Mhm.
obviously throughout my pregnancy, hence the preeclampsia. And that was something that they just kind of kept an eye on. In terms of symptoms throughout my pregnancy, the issues with blood sugar with gestational diabetes, I had really bad nausea. I didn't get the I forget what it's
The
called, but I didn't get
hypertension?
diagnosed with that. But I had pretty extreme nausea throughout the pregnancy. And so took medicine and stuff to help with that. But other than that, it wasn't like my symptoms weren't terrible throughout pregnancy. I had a lot. So the last couple months of my pregnancy were also just very eventful. I live in West Virginia, but I'm from North Carolina. And I'm sorry, I'm giving you a whole lot of background. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
But I was raised by my grandparents, and it was just me and my grandmother left. And so she got very sick towards the end of my pregnancy. And so I was driving back and forth a whole lot to North Carolina. She passed away at the end of April.
I'm sorry.
And so thank you. So a lot of that impacted, I had obviously a lot of stress, because I was
Absolutely.
in
I
charge
lost
of
my
like,
parents. Yeah. 4 months
yeah,
later, I lost my mom, and I just had my heart procedure, and it was just an awful, I mean, the grieving
yeah,
is so hard. I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And, you were her, caretaker when you needed a caretaker, because you were obviously suffering. Um, yeah. So, who was your support during your recovery during this time? Who is the person that is with you most?
yeah. My husband has been pretty phenomenal throughout all of this. He helped me as I was trying to figure everything out with my grandma, everything before she passed and after. And obviously had health problems leading up to her birth, like with the preeclampsia, but part of that was probably also brought on a little bit by stress and all of those things. Um,
Yeah. And
and
so and so the fact that, this is fairly new, w- and um your gynecologist did not diagnose you, right?
no, no, I ended up in the ER, and the ER doctors are the ones that figured out what was going on. So
At what hospital again?
St. Joseph's Hospital,
That was at St. Joseph's.
yeah, in Buchanan, West Virginia. But so when I had the baby, um, I I'm terrible at this part of the story because number one, it's a blur, but also number two, I don't
Yeah.
remember whatever they give you after you have birth that's supposed to help you stop bleeding. I don't remember if it's Pitocin or something else that starts with a P. But the medicine that they give you through an IV that's supposed to help you contract, stop bleeding, all of that, my IV failed and I didn't get any of that.
Mm,
And so I hemorrhaged pretty severely.
right.
They gave me that one blood transfusion. And then the next day, she got transferred to the NICU at the same hospital that I ended up the next week.
Mhm.
She ended up being fine, but they thought for a little bit that she might have some heart problems. And this was before we knew what was going on with me. But so they went ahead and released me that day, or on Friday. And I got progressively a lot sicker. So we went to the hospital in Morgantown where we stayed with her while she was at the NICU. She was released on Saturday. and we brought her home, and I was very weak, understandably. And so we thought, like, I just assumed it was because I had so much blood loss and I had hemorrhaged and I had just given birth and all of that. But all the classic signs of hard to breathe, couldn't like lay down very easily. I was incredibly weak. Like, it was difficult for me to get up and down the stairs to our bedroom.
Sure.
That night, part of what prompted me to end up going to the ER was that she was in a bassinet right beside the bed. And I had gotten to the point where I was laying down in bed. I couldn't sit up on the side of the bed and pick her up because I was so weak. So I went to the ER. They're the ones that did the tests and diagnosed.
Well, gosh, I mean, I'm so glad that you were finally at that point diagnosed. Yes, your life was at a threat at that point because the ER was the ones that actually caught it. And it is a scare, I remember all of that, what you went through. We all go as PPCM, some more so than others, but I can very, much, relate where it was definitely an uncomfortable. I mean, he was my baby was totally like, I knew he was fine. Like, I felt like he was in a safe bubble. I knew I wasn't fine. We kept checking the baby's heart, the baby's brain, and he was coming out perfect. And he felt perfect, even though he was breached. But, obviously we know our bodies when we're not okay. So I'm glad that they diagnosed you. Did you go back to your gynecologist and your baby doctor and say, hey, I am peripartum cardiomyopathy? Did they know what the disease was?
So part of what happened was I went to the ER at like, I don't know, like maybe 3 a.m. that morning. They started running tests, doing all the things. When they realized what was going on and that there were problems with my heart, they went ahead and admitted me to the hospital. And since I had just given birth, they went ahead and admitted me back to labor and delivery. So I ended up back upstairs right where I had just come from. And so everybody realized that at that point, we all like kind of figured out together what was going on. Everything happened so quickly. My the midwife the midwife nurse who helped give birth or helped me while I was giving birth, she wasn't there. I didn't see her until a few months later at my return visit checkup. But
so during your 9 months, did you go to a hospital and have an OBGYN, like an OB medical, or did you have a midwife?
So I worked with WVU Women's Center in Buchanan, which is, it's a part of our hospital, St. Joseph's. But they only have, I think, maybe 2 doctors on staff, 2 OBGYNs, and the others are nurse midwives. And so throughout your time, like your 9 months, they have you working with everybody on staff because
what
whoever
state is this again? What
West
state?
Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
So
going to deliver because it's who's on call. So you work with everybody at some point during the 9 months.
Okay. So everybody that you worked with in 9 months, they were all midwives.
No, I worked with one of the doctors.
Okay.
And then for the most of it, I worked with the nurse midwives. But I did have a few appointments with one of the doctors.
Okay. And have all of everybody there, were they familiar with peripartum cardiomyopathy and the preventions?
I have no idea. It wasn't something that we ever talked about prior to my diagnosis. And honestly, I haven't most of my interactions with doctors since then have been with my cardiologist at WVU Medicine. So I worked with maternal when I got transferred to the major hospital. I worked with maternal fetal medicine and their cardiology units in conjunction, and they together kind of treated me. I only saw the doctor that I worked with while I was pregnant the day that they diagnosed me and transferred me to that hospital. And so we didn't talk about, I don't know anything, like we didn't talk about prevention things prior to that. And I had no idea what any of it was until they were like, this is what's going on. We're going to transport you.
Exactly. So you do know that the NT-proBNP test is the test that they needed to provide you to give you a diagnosis for being able to be treated. But they're gynecologists, so why would, or, you know, birth workers, I think they call them, or birth keepers. Now, I believe is what they call themselves. But the reality is that the NT-proBNP test is a simple blood test, but it's not provided in the blood out of all the blood panels that we had. And I'm sure that you had many because you were diagnosed as gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, you know, everything but the actual disease that you were currently suffering from. And that was because your doctors, your midwives, and most of the hospital didn't, during pregnancy, test your BNP. Excuse me. Are you familiar with the test?
Loosely, I've seen people talk about it a little bit in the Facebook group. But again, it's not something that I was aware of. If it was something that I was tested for during pregnancy, I didn't know about it. It wasn't that we ever talked about.
Yeah. And excuse me, heart failure. Sometimes it chokes me still.
Same.
You know, it's interesting because that number now is like the number that you need to know for your baby, you need to know for you. It's very important to know that number and what that number means. Because you were preeclampsia, PPCM, you can be both.
Yeah.
I believe I was both. They are treated the same. Preeclampsia doesn't have prevention, but they do have things that can lessen the symptoms, because if you cure the condition, you cure the symptoms. So if it's treated as such, you know, lying back and like feeling like you can't breathe and walking up steps, and, you know, you still, you know, probably have that, you know, it's best that, you know, you follow up with your doctors, you know, to know the size of your heart and to see if it's back to a normal size, and your BNP number, anything below 99. If they do the NT-Pro, anything below 300 is the number. And especially for your baby. I mean, if she had any type of question about her heart, it's so important. A simple blood test can determine. I don't understand why they don't have it mandatory at this point for babies, let alone the mothers.
When she was transferred to the NICU, it was because her, when, you know, in the first 24 hours, when they do like the heel pricks and things like that to test like your blood oxygen levels and things like that. Hi, I know.
She's saying, I can't believe it.
I know. She's just
I
learning
just can't
to shake
believe
her.
it.
She was, her heart rate was dropping too low when they would do the heel pricks, because she was like screaming bloody murder and her heart rate would drop too low. And they weren't, so essentially the hospital where I gave birth at, they do not have a NICU. They're not equipped to handle children with any kind of special needs or who need like extra medical attention, things like that. And so the way they explained it to us was out of an abundance of caution, they transferred her just to make sure, because what was happening could potentially be indicative of heart problems. The NICU and the medical centers, when we got there, they kept her for 2 days and said that she was great. But I agree with you. I don't know that her BNP was tested. And honestly, this is going to sound really terrible, but I don't think it occurred to me until this conversation.
No,
Because
well, I
I
mean,
just
that's
assumed,
why, yeah, that's why we're having this conversation. It's good because it's like when this happens to you, it's like, it's almost like sometimes you need somebody to think for you or somebody that, has been through it.
well, you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know like what questions to ask a lot of times until after. And so, yeah,
I
no,
have my son's BNP lab order with his EKG literally on my refrigerator, like right now. I mean, huh?
how old is your son?
He's now 5.
Okay. And he was your heart
He's
baby?
he's my heart baby. I know I could never do that again. I mean, I survived cardiac death. I had my times of death. I was
Oh
gone
my
for
God.
like, yeah, my heart stopped for over 30 minutes each cardiac arrest, and I had 3. And I was in a coma
Oh,
and very healthy girl, but my entire life, but it's a pregnancy induced heart failure. I was
yeah.
never diagnosed. I was never treated. So 3 months after giving birth to my son is when I finally coded. Like my body just failed. And
You didn't know until like you weren't diagnosed right away.
I I was told and diagnosed from a hospital in Arizona, not even in California. I was going to Cedar Sinai, best doctors, East and West Tower. And 7 days before Thanksgiving, I went to them with a 104 temperature. They gave me a shot, said I had a UTI. When my kidneys were failing, they induced my cardiac arrest by giving me fluid when I was full of fluid. And then
Oh,
literally 7 days later, I woke up from literally cardiac death. It took me days for them to thaw my body out to say, welcome back. You are a peripartum cardiomyopathy survivor and you are a medical phenomenon. And we're so happy that you're up. And
you right.
yeah, and I struggled for a while. I mean, when you come out of a coma, you're not yourself. I was so disoriented and I didn't know where my baby was. And I remember all I wanted to do was see him and I didn't know what was going on. And realizing this after all this time, 5 years, and hearing everybody, probably more common than not, women are wanting to know during pregnancy that they're being treated for the symptoms, that are happening so it doesn't
Yeah.
turn into a disease. And realizing the fight of women not being listened to and
Yeah.
this test not being mandatory, and the United States of America having one of the highest death rates in globally, when we're one of the richest countries in the world. It's very sad when there's a prevention with early diagnosis of a simple blood test of the NT-proBNP, which is that it's a brain neurotrophic peptide test, and it will determine levels, of really most diseases, I feel, but it can definitely pinpoint diagnosis for peripartum cardiomyopathy, maternal mortality, and what you would need to do at that point. And really, there's no excuse, as the study teams say, because at the IPAC lab, that no woman should ever suffer or die from peripartum cardiomyopathy if she's left untreated and never diagnosed. So if it's medically proven, then, they put, I'm saying they as in, I don't know who would be responsible, other than the lack of education and training, and who starts that. Maybe it's us as survivors to educate that this is way more common. Um, you know, 1 out of 4, they say, but how do they get the statistics if they don't do the diagnosis? So it's
Yeah.
really quite remarkable when a survivor goes through this type of trauma and lives to be able to talk about it, especially with you holding your baby next to you. It's scary. You want to live a long life with her, and you want to, not feel, all the fear. And I think awareness can really help with that, awareness of the BNP test for her and for you. Like I said, I have mine. If my husband, hey babe, you here? Well, he's not here. Usually he's here, and the one time he's not here, he's always around. But I was going to show you, it's on the refrigerator, that at 5 years old, they say to up your EKG for your baby starting at 5. So this will be his first EKG. Can you hand me the EKG on the left? Hand me the medical, his BNP test. And the thing is that most new PPCM survivors don't, we think about ourselves. When we're pregnant, we think about the baby, check the baby. Is the baby okay? But then afterwards, it's about, it's still checking the baby, because the baby was inside of us while that fluid was happening. So it doesn't stop there with checking the baby. It starts checking us. We're the beginning of it, obviously. But it's very important.
We can ask their doctors to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to ask your pediatrician, which is the one that I have. See, this one, he writes, let me see if I can, why is it blurry? Here. I don't know what's going on. I can't show you.
It's the filter in the background.
I'm going to have to send it to you. But literally, oh, babe, what's going on here? He blurted out. I didn't even know he did this.
It's the filter that you have on with Zoom, or I think we're on Zoom. It blurs out everything but you, and so it's thinking that that's something else.
Okay.
Not you.
All right. Well, anyway, I wanted to show you that down here, I can't even do it. It's blurred out. It says, give me the other one. Yeah. It's blurred.
Face detection.
So it gives you a list. So I have here a full panel for it's I'm going to send this to you, and it's basically not just his BNP and his EKG, but his hemoglobin and things like that. So while you're there, and talk to the pediatrician about, requesting the BNP test for her, and that you want to do an EKG on her, and how early can you do that? Okay. Is it 5? Definitely they say at 5 years old, you should have just the PPCM baby just heart checked, because our babies are studies. We're part of a study. We don't have enough information, and that's why we all need to talk, and we can continue, maybe even having a second interview once you both get your BNP, and we can talk about that, how important it is for even a baby, because it can maybe prevent other things. It can pick up cancer, it can pick up so much, and it can be easily prevented. But if we don't know about it, then, life is at a threat.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I actually just got I met with my cardiologist last week. Hi.
Mm-hmm.
And have an appointment in a few weeks for my first echo or EKG. And so we'll be able to see what my EF is then, hopefully, because I haven't done it since I was diagnosed.
What was your EF when you were diagnosed?
39%.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot lower in the Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Well, there's no comparison. I mean, honestly, you can't compare even somebody who even has 50 or 60 because there's so much going on in the body, like the trauma that we've gone through. It's not even like, I mean, I was at 10%, but I'm no different from somebody who's 30%. I mean, it's trauma on the heart. You know, pain is pain. And it doesn't matter if you stub your toe or you hit your head, you know? So, definitely, what are you doing to raise your EF percent?
So just we implemented like some of the basic lifestyle changes, like less salt and things like that. Medicine, I take daily metoprolol, spironolactone, and I'm probably saying some of these wrong, and one other one. But the ones that I'm on, my cardiologist said are not designed to necessarily raise my EF. It's just to keep my heart kind of functioning as long as I take them and doing what it's supposed to, because whatever medicine that I'll eventually go on to, I can't take while I'm breastfeeding. And so until we stop doing that, that's part of why I haven't had another EKG since diagnosis, because we weren't actively doing anything to kind of, like, none of the medicines were supposed to be improving it.
I know, like, West Virginia, is there like an aquatic like pool, like indoor, like even in the wintertime? Do you guys have like aquatic like aerobics, water aerobics by chance?
Not where I'm at.
No. Even like what I did is I got Liam in the pool with me, and I got really into water aerobics with the elderly people, and it was great. I mean, it really got my heart rate up. You know, they'd be like, I got a pain right here, and I'm like, I got a defibrillator right there. You know, it was like, you know, they were like my people at the time. But I really did feel that it helped me because it was less impact on my ankles, my back. It was really good for the baby to swim. He's now a fantastic little swimmer, but at 5, he jumps in and swims laps with me. So I felt that it helped me reduce fluid. It helped me, you know, strengthen my heart, lose the baby weight. I was in the pool. At first, I had to literally walk around the shallow end and build up my strength. And I always had foam weights, and the foam weights would help me because it would put no pressure on my heart. I'd be floating and just moving my arms and moving my body and just getting like my heart rate up. And I went, you know, I was at a 10% and stayed stable, and I'm still stable the last 4 years at 64 EF percent.
Okay.
So you can help yourself more so, I think, doing that than even like the balance between, I think that helps working with the medication. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I know that like we can't just rely on having good health by taking like vitamins and pills and things like that.
No,
hey, Daddy, can you grab him, please? The puppy. So I think that like there's a way to meet yourself at the level with having, you know, your circulation, your blood pressure, your recovering your heart. You just gave birth, you know, it'll give you energy, it will make you feel better. I don't know if you can't get to like a pool or anything, then like try doing any type of like exercise stretching at home, because that
We
will
walks. Like I'll put the baby in her stroller and we'll try to do like little walks around our neighborhood.
Mhm.
But I mean, swimming would definitely be ideal. Like I would love that. They just built a new like aquatic center a couple towns over that my boss is doing swim lessons with her baby at. So that's for
Mhm.
sure something I can look into too.
Yeah, you'll feel a difference. Um like I felt like, I mean, you could probably even still see it like with my veins and everything, like they're really bad,
Yeah.
so and like it was from, it's really bad.
Oh wow, you can see your veins.
Oh yeah,
Problem.
I'm
My veins are
I mean, I'm
non-existent.
like a I literally on this side of my body, I'm like perfect. I'm fine. It's this side of the body, everything to the left, although it is
Uh-huh.
kind of creeping over to the right, but it's gotten tremendously worse because, but I'm lucky to be alive. So I call myself like I'm a zombie I have zombie issues. I came back from the dead. I'm lucky to be alive, but I do have zombie issues, and but I'm not complaining. It's like it is what it is. It's not many people can, you know, come back from death and be alive to talk about it, which is why I think it's so important for women to talk about this, because we only, like you said, we only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. And I've never heard of this, and I even worked with pregnant women. I even wrote for my University of Pennsylvania. I did an internship about pregnancies, and I helped. I used a bill to make sure women that were giving birth on the streets, like women that were raped or something like that, that they would have a sliding scale fee and still be able to deliver in a hospital, and still
Yeah,
get the proper visits.
which is incredible.
Yeah, and here I'm learning all this stuff. This was like many moons ago. This is when I was at the University of Pennsylvania back in 2000, but I've never heard of this. I feel like in some way I was meant to, as all the steps that I've taken in life, it's almost like it was preparing me, because I was always around in the field of pregnancy. Everything
Mhm.
that I did, I was always around pregnancies. And then this happened to me and then I lived. So I'm taking like all this knowledge and information and interviewing, you from West Virginia, and basically alive to to say that, you were saved.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I don't know how many people you're interviewing and how many people you've spoken to, but I like even just being a part of the Facebook group to see how many other people who have experienced this. Like it sucks on one level because obviously you don't want anybody to go through these types of things, but at the same time it has been very, I don't even know the word. It's been really gratifying to find other women and other people who have been there. And so I appreciate the efforts that you're taking to do this.
Yeah, well, thank you. I feel like I don't have. I feel almost like not. I feel I've taken on a responsibility, and I feel responsible for not just the women today, but for like your child, your baby. There needs to be
Yeah.
change, and it's for our children's children. I mean, you have the awareness already. I have the awareness already. This is about change. This is about women's health and wellness, not for just starting now, but continuing and hoping that come your baby being at a young lady, finding the love of her life, wanting to make a baby, that this test is already mandatory by the time she's, at that point. And this is what we can only hope. And so, yeah, I feel blessed to, have, to see you both, and because you're both miracle blessings. And I'm very curious to what her BNP number is, as that would be the first baby that I would know. I do interview back to back, about 3 to 4 interviews a day, and some are on Saturdays and Sundays. I have husbands that lost their wives leaving babies behind. I have mothers that lost their daughters. I have, sisters that have lost their sister-in-law or their sister. I mean, it's, a real tragedy. But then,
The
yeah,
family
and
members
then,
with too.
yeah, they've been coming up a lot. And, you as a survivor and all the other survivors, I appreciate you all coming forward, because in order for this movement to actually be a success, it's almost as if, like, what exactly the steps that we're taking in showing that this is actually extremely common. It's just rare for having any awareness. And, I always like to ask, like, from your experience, what would you tell a person that's listening to this right now who's pregnant and they're not being diagnosed, but they know that there's something wrong? Or what would you say to somebody that was you during your pregnancy? What
Yeah.
approach would you use to maybe share information that can help another?
That is a super good question. I think that for me, the biggest part, when I started feeling bad because I had such a traumatic birth, I just brushed everything off. For days, I just was like, I tried to explain it away with, I just hemorrhaged. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that had that been the only things that had happened, like, I still would have probably felt bad. Like, I would have felt to some degree what I was feeling, but it just, like, it wasn't normal. And it wasn't normal, like, post birth. And because it was my first baby, because I didn't know what was going on, like, I had no frame of reference. And so I think, like, I don't really have good advice. I think it's more of just trust what you're feeling, and don't be afraid to ask questions about it. Because even if I didn't have PPCM, and if it had just been a response to me hemorrhaging, like, it was still not normal, and it still did not feel right, and it didn't feel good, and it progressively got worse. And so I think just trusting yourself, not being afraid to ask questions or to talk to someone when things don't feel right, for me, was the biggest thing. And
that's what most, when I ask this question, it's unanimous. I mean, it's what everybody says: self-advocacy. Just don't give up. If someone, if you're not feeling right, then it's not right, and to speak up. And if that one's not listening, go to another person until finally you can help yourself and not let yourself just deteriorate, have your body just continue to fail without, your body's like literally screaming at you, and the doctors are not diagnosing it. So exactly, self-advocacy.
And I will say, especially after seeing some of the women post in this group, that I was incredibly fortunate that the doctors that I went to listened. And even my, like, the midwives
Absolutely.
and the OBGYN that I worked with, like, I think that a big part of it was maybe they just hadn't experienced it before, but not that they weren't listening to the things that I said throughout my pregnancy. And it breaks my heart every time I see these women post about how, like, they're just turned away, or like not listened to, or not taken seriously, because that was not my experience. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, and recognize that a lot of people are not given that luxury. So
Exactly. I definitely wasn't. My doctor, my hospital, um, over 42 visits, over multiple doctors, nobody had any awareness. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really a horrible feeling just to suffer like that. And so many women do. I'm glad and grateful that you have an amazing care team, and that can definitely, moving forward with your health and, what you strive, to keep yourself healthy, um, is a huge support. I mean, it's our biggest support, because it's life and death, and it's
yeah.
good to have those follow-ups. And yeah, and that's exactly what exactly the steps that we need to take. But the most important thing is know your BNP every time you get blood. You can get it done. I mean, even my internal medicine doctor, he says, "Lindsay, why did you get your BNP done again? You just had it done." I was like, well, something can happen just within that 2 months, 3 months. It's like, it can't hurt.
Safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Now that we know, it would be careless not to apply the information once educated. That's for sure.
Agreed.
But no, you're wonderful. Your baby is just the most precious little boo-boo. I love her. And I look forward to seeing her grow over the years. But I look forward to connecting with you again if anything should come up. I'd love to do another interview with knowing her BNP number as a baby. And if there's any information that your pediatrician or that they discover with your baby, again, all our babies are studies. And I think that the more we learn from each other, I think can give ideas and might be life-saving. It could really be important at that time of need.
Yeah. She was reaching for you.
Yeah. Well, enjoy her. She's a love. Enjoy every minute.
Thank you.
What's her name?
Her name is Piper.
Oh, Piper. I love the name Piper. I said if I had a little girl, she would definitely, I love the name Piper. It's like one of my favorite names.
We like it.
Yeah. It's a perfect name for a perfect little baby. And yeah, best of luck to you and your beautiful family. And we'll definitely, keep in touch and do a follow-up as well.
Thank you again for everything that you're doing and for putting this together. I think it's awesome. And very much appreciated. I know I can speak from my side of it, so thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm glad that you have a voice and you care about other women as well, and babies and families, to be able to tell your story and your time, because your time is precious.
Well, you have a wonderful night, and
thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the PPCM Fund podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. PPCM's Painful Truth is made possible through the generous support of donors like you. Help us spread the awareness by donating at ppcmfund.com, or click the link below to become a member through Ko-fi. Also, remember to join us every Monday and Friday for Mom Day Fitness. Have a great day.